you won.
$2,000 I'm going to guarantee you. No danger.
Dimension reveals a psychic scam, Thursday at 10.
You're watching WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Tonight, live from the Twin Cities, it's Rosen Sports Sunday. Brought to you in part by your Great Northern Jeep and Eagle dealers and by Old Milwaukee and Old Milwaukee Light. It doesn't get any better than this.
Let me tell you a little bit about them, how to prepare them. This is a fresh one, of course. They also come frozen artichoke hearts.
Cowboys were not about to stare a gift horse in the mouth. They took Buffalo for a ride to football heaven. The Bills will stumble back to Buffalo. At least they provided some consolation to snake-bit Viking fans. The only thriller of the night was at halftime. Nice hair, Coach. I can recommend a stylist.
Night is falling on the Twin Cities, yeah. Rosen Sports Sunday is coming at you live tonight. Rosen Sports Sunday, gonna be live tonight. Short head but quarterback. In a game that Rosie don't cover. Kick back, cool out. It's time for another Rosen Sports Sunday. 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 Rosen Sports Sunday.
And good evening and welcome to Sports Sunday on this Super Bowl Sunday. Well, 4 years ago, the Dallas Cowboys were the laughing stock of the league with a 1-15 record and a head coach who used too much hairspray, who came from the college ranks, no less. Tonight, they are Super Bowl champs with the youngest team in the NFL. Yes, for the 9th straight year, the NFC kicked more sand in the face of the AFC, and Buffalo has now been through this 3 straight times. Dallas 52-17. And will go down as yet another Super Bowl blowout. We have put together our own analyst team to break down the dominance of Dallas today. Vikings defensive coordinator Tony Dungy, who had today's result right on the money. Maybe not exactly the score, but he'll tell us what went right for the Cowboys and wrong for the Bills defense. And quarterback Sean Salisbury will tell us what he liked about Troy Aikman and company as he gets offensive about the Super Bowl. Well, beyond the X's and O's of the game, how did NBC fare in its single biggest event of the year? Joining us from his Critics Corner is Brian Lambert, television and media critic for the St. Paul Pioneer Press. And Brian, should NBC be proud as a peacock for its efforts today?
Well, I think NBC, the Peacock, managed to stay out of the way of the blowout and did a basically workmanlike job. But you know, the thing that I'm worried about as a Minnesotan, I want to know when Pig's Eye Pilsner gets a shot at the Bud Bowl, which would have to be more interesting than this game was.
That seems what it comes down to. We're going to have a lot more talk with Brian Lambert about the commercials, the halftime show, and oh yes, maybe even a little talk about what happened during the course of the football game coming up in our next section. But first, we want to get down to football chat with Sean Salisbury and Tony Dungy. Sean, we briefly talked to you during our sportscast about your thoughts about the game. Tony, you had it, you said, listen, Buffalo is not in the same class as Dallas. You've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. Did anything catch you by surprise or other than the final score?
Well, not really. The game kind of went the way I thought it would. I felt that Dallas would get ahead, that Jim Kelly would probably make a couple of mistakes, and then when Buffalo got behind, they'd have to press, and it just kind of snowballed. And that's what's happened the last few Super Bowls, and I just don't think the AFC is quite up with the upper echelon teams of the NFC.
Do you think Dallas was perturbed at all when Buffalo grabbed that 7-0 lead, Sean?
I think obviously they were perturbed, but I think that it's a 60-minute game. You saw what happened to us against the Redskins. You jump out early, but it's a long game. It's not a one-player, one-series game. And yeah, I think they may be a little perturbed, but still calm and composed, and they played like a team that had been there for 15 straight years.
And that was one of the pieces of information we heard all week. Buffalo has all this so-called Super Bowl experience. Dallas with the youngest team in the NFL. They're not quite sure how to react. Well, let's get to some of the highlights, and especially a guy like Troy Aikman, never been through anything like this before, playing really in his own backyard. Came out after the trailing 7-0 and hit Jay Novacek, who was one of, again, the big stars for Dallas all year.
Yeah, and when you can block for your quarterback and a running back can run, and you got the tools that Troy Aikman does and the people that can catch it, the rest is easy. 0
interceptions for Troy Aikman throughout the entire postseason. That stat maybe says it as much as anything else about his progress.
It's a huge key, and you look at the difference. 9 turnovers for Buffalo, and won for them, but Aikman wasn't in the game and no interceptions throughout. He played calm and poised, and the best is yet to come for him. He's a super football player, and he deserves it. And the one thing about him, he's always composed and calm, not too high, not too low, and he's able to keep that composure throughout.
That's kind of a scary thought, considering the way they dominated Buffalo and even San Francisco the last couple of weeks.
He hasn't run into Tony Dungy's defense yet, though.
Well, let's get to Tony right now. Get to the defensive side of the ball. And even though they have the NFL's #1 rated defense, we're not going to hear any of those Dallas defensive guys' names next week at the Pro Bowl. None of them are going there.
Well, they've got a great defense, and they do it with team speed. They've just got outstanding speed. They've got a great front that puts pressure on the passer, and all of their linebackers and secondary are turnover guys, and that was the difference today.
Dallas seemed, as you mentioned, to do a good job of disguising their defenses. We're going to show some of the things that happened early when Jim Kelly was in the game, because it didn't seem like he knew where the rush was coming from.
No, they Ballard and just created all kinds of havoc all day.
Dallas, without the superstars, seems that it's almost become a rallying cry for them. A couple of players mentioned that at the end of the game. Does the Pro Bowl thing, does this really make a farce out of what we're going to see next week because of the lack of attention these players are getting?
Well, not really. The Pro Bowl is more for individual accomplishments, and the Super Bowl is for team accomplishments, and that's what Dallas proved today.
What did they ever? Well, Jim Kelly not only took heat from the Cowboys, but also made a couple of costly mistakes early in the game, Sean, and his first was to James Washington.
Costly mistake for a veteran who's been there 3 years, and it was a very poor performance.
Who's calling that play at that point? Is that coming from the bench, or is that Jim Kelly?
Well, that's since they huddled up and went for it, that's, I believe, up there. But it wasn't the play. I mean, obviously the play call, like I said, I didn't like the call. But to go for it had guts, but you put your, in a veteran quarterback's hands and let him do it, and it's a costly mistake. Execution more so than the play.
Mm-hmm. Tony, anytime Buffalo did get close early, something bad would happen, but Dallas has really been doing this all year long, so there's nothing surprising about this. And when the downhill slide began, it really went downhill in a hurry. The fumble recovery you talked about started by Charles Haley. It was only 4.
Kelly got hurt, and Buffalo did not do a good job of picking up Dallas's blitzes all day.
Probably wouldn't mattered a lick had Kelly stayed in the game the entire way today.
I don't think so at all. Dallas was rolling, and Buffalo was a little bit out of sync.
Guys, we're going to get to your report cards right now for each team. Tony, we're going to go with you first as we get to the Dallas Cowboys, and let's see what Tony has to say about the way these teams stacked up today in play calling, line play, and mistakes. Well, we know how those are going to come out.
I thought they did a good job of play calling. The execution wasn't there, but I thought Dallas was outstanding. Kept Buffalo off balance all day, ran the ball and threw it.
The line play as well.
Yeah, the Dallas's offensive and defensive lines dominated, and the mistakes just killed Buffalo in the final analysis.
We hear mistakes, 9 of them, not enough for an 8th grade team to win many football games, but again, is that how much of that's Dallas and how much of that's Buffalo forcing them?
I think it's both. Obviously, I mean, I rate A's right across the board, and how could you could probably give them A pluses? They were great, but whenever you can't beat an 8th grade team that way. And I mean, I think also not only Buffalo making mistakes, but Dallas creating them on both sides of the ball, and Dallas not turning it over and making great plays. And here we go. Like I said, play calling's an A, line plays an A, and mistakes are an A. They didn't make many other than the one that didn't mean anything at the end of the game. They were superb all day long.
Now look closely. Which most resembled your high school report card?
The one on the right.
The one on the
straight A's? Right.
I want to make that clear. I know you started getting the shakes here just for a minute there. Well, we know that Troy Aikman was named MVP of the Super Bowl today, but Tony, I want to ask you this. Who could have been picked perhaps as the unsung hero of the game today? Because and
he was a big reason for it.
Never heard Bruce Smith's name, I think, but once today. That's a big factor. We talked at halftime. You said maybe he was wearing the wrong shoes. He wasn't getting off the ball real fast.
I thought both teams slipped a lot. It rained last night, and I thought Dallas, I saw some of their guys changing cleats on the sideline. I think maybe Buffalo didn't go to it quick enough. Metzelaars fell down on the interception. Bruce Smith, I was watching him on his get-offs, and he was slipping on the snap count a lot, and I just don't think they had long enough cleats on.
Sean, who's your guy for the unsung hero of today's game?
Well, I mean, you could pick anybody on the offensive line, like Tony said, because they played superb. But I got to go with the tight end, Jay Novacek, just because he does it quietly, gets open, and Aikman gets in the ball like earlier, which enables receivers to get man coverage, and that's what they did. So I'll give it to him. Caught 5 or 6 balls and made a big difference.
The Dallas Cowboys will be king of the hill next year. Repeating, as they say, is almost next to impossible, but Dallas will be given probably the best chance to do so in years because of their youth. And Tony, is complacency the only thing that Dallas has to guard against for next season?
Well, it can be tough to repeat. I can remember the Bears in '85, and they had a dominant team, went through the whole thing, and they couldn't come back and do it because there's a lot of distractions when you win. Dallas is the media darlings right now. They've got a lot of great young players, but they got to stay together.
Sean, the NFC is without question head and shoulders right now. The Dallas beating San Francisco. They got Washington, Philadelphia. the Vikings. Where do they stack up now as you look at the Super Bowl champion Cowboys today?
With the top-of-the-line teams in the National Football League, and obviously Dallas is a champ until proven somebody else takes it away, but we believe we stack up, and in order to get to that level, I think just a little bit of depth or what have you at certain things and execution, we'll be right where we need to be competing with those guys.
One aspect we didn't talk about, Dallas does lose its defensive coordinator. Dave Wannstedt's going on to coach the Chicago Bears next year, and what kind of impact do you think he'll bring to Chicago and how much that Dallas program?
Well, I think he'll definitely help them bring a lot of enthusiasm, bring some great defensive ideas, and you know, that is somewhat what happened to Chicago. They lost Buddy Ryan after their Super Bowl, and it took a little bit away from them, and it brought Philadelphia on. So I think you'll see the same type of thing.
Is all this all quiet on the Western Front here? Well, last time we didn't have a chance to talk ever since I saw your name in USA Today saying, is Tony Dungy bitter about being passed over for a head coaching job? Was that?
Bitter was the wrong word. I just had a conversation with Brian Burwell, and it wasn't bitterness at all. But no, all is quiet on the Western Front, and we're looking forward to next year already.
Mini camp coming up here in a couple of months, right?
I was just going to say, yeah, and we got a few months to get ready, but it'll come fast. I was just saying about Tony that it is a crime. I mean, we're so grateful that we get to have him on our football team for selfish purposes, but we're not going to get to keep him for long. I mean, we better enjoy it while we can because he'll be a head coach soon.
What are you advertising here?
No fear.
No fear. The Reebok Planet team here. Sean, thanks much. Tony, appreciate your time throughout the playoffs.
It's been fun.
We're going to return with Brian Lambert to talk about Super Bowl commercials. You may have seen the new Frito-Lay spot, but we'll show you what you didn't see, so stay with us.
Dazzling sets, glittering costumes, and former U.S. and World Champion Jill Trenery. It all comes together at Icecapades, presented by Lake Shear Energy, February 3rd through the 7th at Target Center. Wednesday, February 3rd is extra special. Tickets are just $7.50, courtesy of WCCO TV. They're on sale now at Target Center, Ticketmaster, or call 989-5151. So plan to bring the whole family to Icecapades for just $7.50 a ticket at WCCO TV Family Night, Wednesday, February 3rd at Target Center.
Looking for a little fun? Your Jeep and Eagle dealers have just received a special allotment of four-door, four-wheel drive Jeep Cherokee Sports, each with an impressive list of features like a 190-horsepower engine, power steering, AM/FM stereo, air conditioning, and more. And if that list doesn't move you, perhaps this one will. So hurry, because this incredible list of Cherokee Sports probably won't last long.
Get great values on a special shipment of Jeep Cherokees and Grand Cherokees now at your dealer.
Enjoy Twins Fest 93 at the Dome. Meet your favorite past and present Twins. Check out the largest baseball card showing in the upper Midwest, or test your skills at the batting cage. All this and much more at Twins Fest 93 at the Metrodome, Saturday, February 6th and Sunday, February 7th. Tickets are $5 in advance or $6 at the door. All proceeds go to the Twins Community Fund. So come on out to this ball game. It's only once a year, and it's great fun for every Twins fan, young or old. Twins Fest 93 at the Metrodome.
In fact, I bet you can tell the difference between any other potato chip and chips.
Yeah, baby, I'm feeling sexy right now, man.
Right, exactly. And in fact, I bet you can tell the difference between a potato chip, which is Lay's, and some other chip, which is something else.
It's one thing to get fired, but you get scalped in the same year. It's tough.
In fact, I bet you can tell the difference between a Lay's potato chip and any other chip.
Perfect.
Hey! You guys still got it, doesn't he, Tom Landry? You may have seen the final product today on the Lay's television commercial, potato chip commercial. Those were some, obviously, of the outtakes. Sometimes more funny than the real spot. Well, the Super Bowl is made for television, or is it the other way around? NBC could have kept David Letterman with the money they made today. You want ratings? 9 of the top 10 rated programs in television history are Super Bowls. Only the final episode of MASH cracked the top 10. The ratings allow the network to make a commercial killing. Added up for a 30-second spot, they say it cost sponsors $850,000 to $900,000. You got to be kidding me. For the 2.5-hour pregame show, well, a lot of time is filled with insightful observations. And Brian Lambert is with us from the St. Paul Pioneer Press, who I think sat with, what, 7-8 hours today in front of the tube watching, absorbing all this?
Combat pay.
Is this what, this is actually, you get paid to do this?
And I'm still not getting any sympathy from anyone for this.
Well, let's start. We talked about the pregame show, but you also observed, we're going to hear from him first before we get your comments on O.J. Cliche Simpson. So this is what he had to say.
The attitude around this hotel for most of the morning was very tense. I would even say the Bills were uptight. On the other hand, the Bills, not one person has spoken to me. I watched Bill Poley and the general manager talk to the guys. Either this team is keyed and ready to play, or it's really uptight. We're not going to find out till they have their first offensive series. Bob, this team is ready to play football today.
Okay, Brian, go ahead and pick on a broadcaster, but why Mick Fleetwood?
Well, I just think Mick needs a little tricep toning there. He's starting to look like the Epiphany Dining Hall ladies. It's pro football. You want some hard body effect, even on your music.
Is this the way the networks should go in attracting viewers for a pregame show?
Well, it was strange for as cynical as I was prepared to be watching 2.5 hours of it. I actually got jazzed up by the time the game was ready to roll. I had seen all the emotional footage of Jackie Smith dropping his pass and everything, and yeah, it's game time. We're normally flip it on and take off.
Of course, one of the most highly anticipated aspects of Super Sunday, of course, are the commercials. No one actually leaves because sometimes they're more interesting. Let's start off with a clip of one of your favorites today, Brian.
This was a good one.
Work off the old gut. Kiss little butt at the office. Sir, nice tie, huh? Make middle management. I hang it up and head on down to Miami. Buy some white shoes and pants, come up to my chest and complain about the government full time. No, man. I mean, what do you want to do this afternoon? Oh. I love it!
Now, this spot is about a CEO?
Yeah, I think we're kind of blowing off the blue-collar appeal with this spot, but Coopers & Lybrand, an accounting firm, you know who we're talking to here.
And Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny win the longest ad award today.
Yeah, think of it. It's $850,000 for 30 seconds. This one goes on for, what, 90 seconds?
Well, they obviously feel they get a good return on their money because they were spending the bucks there. And another Michael J. actually saw more action than Jim Kelly here.
This is, I hate to think what he's actually going on in his pants there, but I don't know if they actually planned that shot to look like that.
Well, it did work, and Michael Jackson got in and off that stage in a big hurry, which is probably they made quicker moves than the Buffalo Bills did. We're talking about the staging crew today.
Definitely. He had more lateral movement than Jim Kelly had all day.
Well, let's get to the real show, supposedly, is the game. How did NBC handle the action today, Brian?
Well, my take was it was very workmanlike. They didn't make any, but my preference, actually, I thought CBS did a better job last year. Some of their camera gimmicks, the super slow-mo that they used, but that's the Super Bowl. You expect to have every angle covered.
Except we never won that really counted. Is there a better way of doing this? If you were to peer into your crystal ball for the future about covering a Super Bowl, what would you like to see that perhaps we have yet to see if that's possible?
Well, if I could have my way, they call the NFL the no fun league, but if I could have my way, I would mic some of these people, mic people on the sidelines, and give the fans the more of the experience of the game. And pro football has become familiar commodity to everyone. Most of us consider ourselves experts, whether we are or not. Let's hear what the players are actually saying.
At the risk of hearing some things that you probably don't want your children to hear?
I think maybe even my kids have heard words like that once in a while.
You mentioned CBS doing the best job. I don't know if there is if it's so big that we're ever going to really have a great game, because the announcers are seemingly begging for something like this to happen. Bob Trumpy, not quite there ready for prime time in your mind, or what?
You listen to Bob, and like I say, I mean, he could have, worse things have happened in sports broadcasting, but you listen to a game like that, you want somebody like Madden, who's got not control of his own senses as he's going through the game, and yet has enough schmaltz about him to give you the theatrical fill that you need in a blowout like this.
Brian, thanks so much for your time. Are you going to write about this for tomorrow now?
I'm spent.
You're done. Go get some rest. He taped the whole thing, too. He's going to go home and watch it again. Well, Super Bowl week was actually kind of dull around these parts this year. At least basketball fans enjoyed Super Week at the Target Center, and I know I did the other night, watching Superman Charles Barkley and Phoenix.
To Barkley, fakes, throws up a three-pointer, Shazam!
Due to the incredible demand for Jeep Grand Cherokee, you may have heard some of these same sob stories. But right now, your Jeep and Eagle dealers have just received a special allotment of Grand Cherokees with the same available V8 power that made them Motor Trend's Truck of the Year. You'll have a great variety to choose from, but you'd better not wait, because if you miss this incredible allotment of Grand Cherokees, you could have a sob story of your own.
Get great values on a special shipment of Jeep Cherokees and Grand Cherokees now at your dealer.
The original Daily 3 Spin had just one jackpot slot on the wheel, so it took a while for someone to win. With the new Daily 3 Spin, not only is the jackpot 2.5 times bigger, starting at $25,000, but there are now 4 jackpot slots on the wheel. Bigger jackpot, more chances to win. Watch the new Daily 3 Spin.
Cigarette companies spend a lot of money advertising to women. And on the surface, they make it all look so good. But you have to ask yourself, what are their real intentions?
Radio free, hey, yeah. Radio free, Rosen. Oh, radio free, hey.
Yes, it's Super Sunday with Super Sid. Yeah. And Sydney, what are your thoughts about watching another demolition derby out there this afternoon?
Well, at least the Vikings won't be getting all the negative publicity now. Buffalo's lost 3 in a row, so they won't have Grant's back, and it's amazing. I mean, Dallas, a great football team. Thanks to Mike Lynn and a few other people.
Should people have a lot of empathy for this Buffalo team? Say they're a great team, but they can't win a championship?
I don't think so. Everybody's going to try and get Dallas to be all out to get them now.
Well, that's the way it always is.
Average age 26.3, and they'll be tough for a long time.
Yeah, they should. But that doesn't mean they win championships.
Tickets because they play the Vikings here about the 4th game next year.
That's right. Well, we talk about players that great players that don't win championships. The Vikings have been victimized seemingly by the National Football League Hall of Fame, and once again this weekend, Carl Eller was, who was voted in at least for the inductees, didn't get there. Now Eller says 4 Super Bowl losses spoiled his chances. Sid, and he's not alone.
Look who's in there. All the guys, the Miamis, the Pittsburghs, the Oaklands,
What makes football different than baseball? In baseball, you don't have to win a championship to get in the Hall of Fame.
You're right. I've sat in those meetings. I'm one of the guys on the vote and argue with those guys, but you can't win. The Super Bowl's everything. They will rip Mr. Marv Levy and Levy and everybody else tomorrow. You think Buffalo never won a game all year?
Well, that's the way it goes, and unfortunately for Buffalo, they're going to have to live with that stigma now. Let's go to some phone calls right now. We're going to start with Mike. You have a question for us.
Yeah, I was wondering how come they don't take some of the teams from the NFC and put them into the AFC for more parity.
That was an interesting thought. I don't know, is this a 9 or 10 year cycle, or are we going to finally see the AFC rise again?
Well, for a long time the AFC was dominant. Now it's just the other way. Who knows?
Bill, you have a question for us.
Yeah, a couple of comments, Rosie. I like your class a lot more than other shows.
Thank you.
I wonder if a few kids have learned a lesson watching him taunt as he runs into the end zone only to get the ball stripped from him.
Yeah, that was an interesting. I'm not quite sure if he crossed the goal line or not, but we're talking about
You don't see Miss Smith doing anything, do you? He's very calm and collective in that end zone when he scores a touchdown.
Emmett does. Yeah. And I'm sure they were, Buffalo was sort of, Dallas sort of feeling their oats at that time, too. They weren't about to.
He'll hear about that, don't worry.
Little celebration. Lisa, you have a call for us.
Yes, I was just wondering if you feel that the Herschel trade helped Dallas win today.
Are you kidding? They got 7 players from that Herschel trade. Not too bad, is it?
Well, that was the biggest stepping stone that they possibly could have made. A team that was 1-15. But Jerry Jones got a lot of heat, and someone should pat this guy in the back because he stuck his neck out.
Yeah.
When they took a lot of heat. Landry was thrown out of the organization basically. They had new ownership, and they were getting beat up back there in Dallas.
They did a heck of a job. They spent a lot of money, and they've done a heck of a job, and they'll be tough in the future. You ask about Herschel Walker. That was the first deal that made him. 3 draft choices, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, and 2.
Well, it's the first year the Vikings will actually have a number 1, 2, and 3 draft choice in seemingly about a decade. Tim, you have a question for us.
Yes, I got a 2-part question here. Is number 1, if the same situation would have been made where the Vikings would have got all the draft picks, do you think they would have done so good? Number 2, Sid, how do you get so many days off from the newspaper?
He deserves it. The man deserves it because it's quality, not quantity we're talking.
I think the Vikings would have done well, too. They'd had Emmitt Smith. They'd had some other great players, and great players make great teams. And the truth of the matter, Aikman and Irwin, Michael Irvin were there before Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson got there, so they were there before them.
Takes some luck as well, some good health, and I'm sure that's what Dallas is going to need in the future to succeed in the NFL. Sid, any other final thoughts?
No, I think Bud Grant says that it won't bother Marv Levy, so I hope it doesn't because he's a real nice guy.
All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.
My
CCO
pleasure.
Radio as always. Sid Hartman, we'll be back to wrap things up in just a minute. Stay with us.
Two for sale at CDC, Clothing Distribution Center, St. Louis Park.
Are you looking for a car that's sporty, reliable, and can get you through the snow and ice with anti-lock brakes and
Welcome back, and yes, we have television man Brian Lambert of the St. Paul Pioneer Press as our guest. Thanks for joining us. The hype.
I'm so happy looking at all that stuff.
The hype, the hoopla, the hyperbole, was it all worth it?
I can't say it was. I mean, the game certainly wasn't. Some of the commercials were worth a laugh, but I thought they missed last year. If you remember the Woodstock ad,
yeah,
which I thought was hilarious. There wasn't one of those this year, but for some reason I still spent 4 hours watching this game. So
all for the commercials?
No, I mean, I'm a football fan. I watch for some of the plays, the camera work in the game. There's good stuff in there.
All right. Well, let's take a look at several of your favorite commercials. Let's start with this Bud Light spot.
Larry!
For the great taste that won't fill you up and never let you down, make it a Bud Light.
The best of show? More?
Best use of a dog.
Loves the mud. Yeah.
The teeth were the best part,
The
clearly.
teeth, they got that glass eye staring back at you, Could be a little, kind of like Sammy Davis from the old days. Sammy would give you that look.
You picked Pepsi as the best ad campaign running throughout the Super Bowl.
They spent a fortune on this.
Let's take a look at why. I think that one probably, it was hard to pick a best of those Pepsi ads.
Yeah, and they also had the one with the guys feeding the dollar bill into the machine, and it had this irritating sound that is sort of rattling in your mind. This is familiar. Finally, it pays off. He's spent all day just to get a Pepsi. But they spent a fortune on all those ads for, I mean, that's quite a campaign.
Yeah, the campaign, and
at
again,
$1 million a minute.
$1 million a minute, and again, the diversity of the ideas. They were going in all different directions, but it hooked you every time.
Yeah, and you notice they mainly bought the first half, figuring that there wouldn't be people left for the second half.
Anybody who was savvy knew to do that. Here's some of your favorite commercials, or some scenes from your favorite commercial of the entire game. Let's take a look.
250, please.
I hear you guys need tickets. Here, you can have mine. Kind of in the middle of something.
Okay, Mike. Through the tunnel, off Leslie Visser's head. Nothing but net.
Same call it in the air.
Corner.
The defensive line of the San Francisco 49ers has got to put pressure on the quarter. What was that?
These best burgers in the world, best seats in the house.
No, it's like we're right in the middle of the game. No, hey, these are great seats. Helmet head. Yeah, Mike was really lucky.
All right, well, you like this one for the payoff.
For the payoff. I mean, these guys have been annoying every football fan in the country for, what, 2 months now? Waiting to get to the Super Bowl.
Has it just been 2 months?
It seemed like 2 years, but finally, that was a funny piece. I can only run once, but that one was good.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, several commercials missed their mark.
Yeah.
Here are some examples.
Burger King's got this burger. It's a thing of beauty. The Whopper. Hello, Betty.
This is Burger King, which always seems to mess up their big shot at commercial time. This is the Bud Bowl. Please, please spare us another Bud Bowl.
You mean just get on with it?
Get on. Well, how many years did they run a Bud Bowl? Enough is enough. And these guys are finally off that one. And this is a anti-diarrhea ad. Why in the Super Bowl are they advertising anti-diarrhea?
Well, is it possible that many folks watching and eating all day long might be needing this afterwards?
Certainly in San Diego.
All right. Well, there you go. Overall, how do you rate ABC's coverage of the whole thing?
Well, ABC, the Monday night crew, they were really straining for this one. Camera work, I gave it a B. They had some very good shots. Commentary, Frank and Alan Dan, it was like playing 4 hours to a dead crowd, so B+ on that one. Competition, D-. You know, much better to bring Dallas back, and overall C+, I thought, for the whole game, the whole entertainment package.
You wish the both NFC teams could have played. Let's take a look at the national anthem.
Here's Kathy Lee, who looks like she's going to explode, and I think is lip-syncing at this point.
I think she was as well.
Yeah.
The audio sort of indicated that. It was far too clean.
Yeah. And here's an example of a good camera shot. The opening kickoff, the face mask call. You get 62 camera setups, you're going to get shots like that.
Was that your best replay?
That one's the best. This one that you can see a lot in a good NFL game, but you got everything the 49ers do well, those slant passes and Jerry with his hands and keeping it low.
Okay, now what about this?
What about this?
This is Patti LaBelle.
This is what, it was like Indiana Jones meets Siegfried and Roy, and look at this thing. Spare me.
I didn't understand the point. I thought for a while it was an infomercial for Indiana Jones films.
Yeah, or Disney World. But just goofy extravagance. I mean, they're so proud of how fast they can set it up. Don't set it up. Just, cut to another analysis and let them sell hot dogs.
What would be the best thing to do? Just that? Just have sort of a roundtable analysis at that point?
Well, I think the best thing they ought to do with these Super Bowl games, especially when they're, got a 20-point spread like this, let's have a 2 out of 3 in this thing. Move it around the country. They can sell more tickets. That would be good.
All right, Brian, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
We appreciate your time. After the break, Tony Dungy will be back to take your phone calls. Stick around, please.